welcome you to Chicago. And I'll say one thing about Chicago. I am a Cub fan. And sometime in the next 2 years, this is from the analyst, I get to talk to Theo, so I have insider information. The Cubs are going to be a good winner. So bet on them in 16 or 17 when you're in Vegas for Money 2020. So, and with that, I just want to say only a couple words to introduce the topic. Mobile wallet, and I write a good amount on it and think about it a lot, and no, we have not made an investment in any mobile wallet company. And part of the reasoning is that for 10 years now, we've all been hearing the next year is a year that we're all going to use our mobile phone to make payments. In 2012, it might have been AT&T or T-Mobile telling me that. Then it was MasterCard or Visa or Bank America or Square, kind of, or whoever it is. So I've tended to build a form of skepticism towards it. And I'm a cynic to a degree to the area. Do I believe I'm going to use my payphone? Yeah, I do now. I use Level Up actually all the time. And my NFC chips, though, is disabled because I see no reason for it, and I have an Android. So, guess what? I can pay. But it's coming. And we all saw the Apple announcement last month. We've all been dealing with it. We've had a lot of questions, and no, that's not my first question. So, and I then look at something on a panel that I was at in Vegas a few weeks ago at a show. It said something like 50 wallets, $1 billion invested. Where is it now? There was a flaw in that stat. There's something like 170 wallets out there in the United States alone. It's been more like $2 billion invested by my brethren in venture capital. And I'm willing to bet you that most of that $2 billion is kind of down the toilet. That might be a different technology show than this one is. I look at companies like ISIS, whatever they want to call it today, depending on what the terrorist group's called. Apple. They should have had Barack Obama calling it ISIL to begin with. It would have saved them a lot of money in marketing. I look at Apple. I look at MCX. I look at PayPal. I look at Google. I look at all the variety of big companies. And one of my questions, which we will ask, is what makes a mobile wallet win? But my first question for you guys, I'd like you to introduce yourselves and tell us what your company does and what you bring to the perspective. And my first question is going to be very simple. What's first, consumer adoption or merchant adoption or something else? And what drives that? So we'll get to that after we get to the introductions. So if you would go first, Andy, we'd appreciate it.
So Clutch is a consumer management platform. Some of you may have already heard that part of what we do. But what some people don't know is that we actually started out as a mobile platform. 5 years ago, we put into market one of the first mobile aggregation wallets. It stores gift cards and loyalty cards and payment methodologies of all sorts and sizes. It aggregates 200,000 daily deals a day based on location and purchase habit. You can do a whole multitude of other things like price comparison shop, complete transactions through the mobile device. When you price comparison shop, you can read reviews, you can find out where to buy that item online or based on your proximity, and a whole multitude of other things. So we really invested heavily as a company in what we thought was going to be a near-term tipping point on mobile adoption, and that didn't happen. So we pivoted and created what is now our B2B platform, which is the consumer management technology that I spoke about earlier.
Well, Christina, since you're in the middle.
Hi, I'm Christina Garcia. I'm with Secure. Secure is a mobile payments platform. It is rolled out in 9 countries in Europe, so the Europeans are ahead of us in actually using their smartphones for tender. They've been in company for 12 years, the past 2 years as payments. They started out doing top-ups across Europe and Asia Pacific. So I think that's where we stand from a payments perspective. Again, rolling out in North America slowly, but in 9 countries, including Russia, Finland, the Netherlands, rolling into Istanbul, and more of the Asia Pacific near the end of the year and into Q1.
And it's Drew that you prefer?
Yep,
or
Drew.
Okay, Drew. Great. I just want to make sure.
Yeah,
Drew, could you please?
Yeah, so see some familiar faces. I was here on a panel yesterday too. So I'm Drew Davidson, the VP of Design at Okta, and we're a mobile design development shop that really helps our customers understand the strategy on mobile and how to engage their customers through applications and other methods on mobile.
Very cool. Well, then I will go to, as I said, I'll give you the foreshadow. The first question, it's a chicken and egg. What is first, the consumer or someone else in the stream? And how do you get them to adopt and push it? And if it's Apple, it's okay. It's a good answer. And whoever would like to go first?
I would actually argue it's probably neither.
Okay.
I ultimately think that the problem we're facing, if it's not already resolved with technology, is really an issue of incumbency. I think there are a lot of players in the payment space that have sort of muddied the waters trying to maintain incumbency in some capacity, because mobile payment is really a methodology to disintermediate a lot of the traditional channels for payment. But I think really the cause of the delayed adoption of mobility is really a generational issue. My parents are never going to adopt mobile payment. I don't care how you incentivize them; they just won't because it's oddly terrifying to them. I'm 40. I might dabble in it, i.e., the Starbucks app. But at the end of the day, I think it's a long-term play for me to eventually graduate into someone who is using that mobile device as my primary payment methodology. So it's going to be, I think, kids who are 10, 12, 14, 15. That generation who is growing up with mobility much, much younger than we were able to access it are the ones that are going to actually create that tipping point. So I think, to sort of round out my answer, I think the issue is time, not technology or people.
Christina? Yeah, it was coming to you next. That ball was rolling down court.
That's a great answer. In addition to time, I think that it's neither the consumer nor the merchant. I think at the end of the day, it's collective. It needs to move forward. If the consumers are willing to adopt it, but they can't do it anywhere, then there's this dissatisfaction with just the whole concept of it. And it's like using an app, and if it doesn't have the latest function, you kind of stop using it. It's no longer top of wallet, you delete it. And merchants aren't willing to jump at the point because they don't feel that there's consumers there. So I think that there's this time, which targeted audiences am I looking for? Should I be looking at a justice or a tween area where I know every one of my target customers have these smartphone devices, and parents aren't willing to give credit cards to these people, and but it's a little of both. I think you need the consumer and the merchants, and you need the mindset that it's safe to use, and we currently don't have that in North America. In Europe, they're more apt to take on technology, and we're seeing those transactions happen quicker. From our standpoint, it's secure in those other countries at convenience and stores and at other retailers. Every day at McDonald's in Finland, we're seeing tons of transactions happening on the phone because it's convenient. We currently don't have that mass adoption or leveraging that functionality, so consumers aren't willing to see benefit in it, merchants aren't, so I think that this collectively has to happen. Apple coming to the fore with it may end up pushing some of them, and we saw some large merchants being announced. A lot of people have smartphones. Everyone lines up to get the newest Apple and try the latest features with the biometrics and stuff, so that may help push it, but that doesn't really tip the ecosystem. It's still that payments play with MasterCard and Visa. So what's the real benefit there? I could swipe a card, I could use my debit card at a grocer. What do I really get from a value add with the Apple Pay outside of the coolness factor? So I think it's going to take a lot more to actually really push it to mass adoption across all of the merchants and the consumers in North America.
Go on, Drew. Your turn.
Yeah, so I would say definitely demand is there from consumers and it's growing. But I think the reason it hasn't happened yet is actually the companies and businesses, retailers in particular, have really failed at it. They're the ones that are going to have to make it happen. Consumers can want it all day long, but the businesses have to build something that they can actually use, and that's something that's actually valuable and easier to use than just swiping your card. It provides some value on top of that. So some of what Apple Pay is doing and what there's some interesting stuff with Panera. I can talk about that a little bit later, but that they're going to do that's going to provide a lot more value than just payments. Payments themselves are not what people want. They want value on top of the payments, and why would I do that? And I think businesses have been very unimaginative in figuring out what that value is. I think we'll start to see it, though, with Apple Pay.
Andy, what do you think? Because my last question was Apple. So, Andy, do you want to answer that too? What do you think Apple does to change the timeline you drew out,
Yeah, I think,
if anything?
I'm an Apple fanboy. I use Apple products. Um, I don't, Apple's clearly not the first mover. I don't think Apple's doing anything that somebody else hasn't already tried. So I don't look at them as being unique or ultra special. I think what differentiates Apple in this situation is that they've had the opportunity to learn from Google's mistakes. So they can expand and create solutions or create marketing around the solutions that they're deploying that help them circumvent or otherwise avoid the minefield that Google has had to walk through and others like them. So I think Apple will be maybe the first to succeed, but as long as MCX continues to be a roadblock and some other solutions tend to have sort of a polarizing effect on the market, I think it's going to be a challenge for ubiquitous adoption. But specifically to Apple, I think what they will do is make mobile payment a little bit more approachable in the sense that people inherently believe that whatever Apple does is beautiful and wonderful and safe and secure and comfortable. And so I think they will bring people who are on the tipping point or who are sitting on the fence, I think they'll bring them into the field.
Okay, let me ask you, Christina mentioned this, you said something special, and payment, and I look at it the same way. Payments 5 years ago was its own beautiful ecosystem, and ISOs and First Data's the world and banks, they all took a little bit off of interchange, Visa, MasterCard, Discover, and now to me it's become part of a social experience of going out and shopping, and it's just part of it. And I think as Christina started to say, there's something more that has to be added to it. What do you think? And we've all heard about loyalty coming on, or coupons, or offers coming through my phone, and we saw the great examples of it over the last 2 days. Is there something special out there that catches your eye, something that we haven't really thought about that might draw us in, or it could be simple as being able to get on the CTA here in Chicago and paying. But is there something out there that's really caught your eye and you think could really help accelerate that timeline a little bit so we don't all have to die off before it's adopted?
I think that specialness is being able to use it for all those daily tasks that I have. It'd be great if I can use this form of payment to pay for the parking downtown when I'm parking my car, if I can get my latte with it, if I can then, hop on the L if I had to go out to Skokie from downtown. And, everywhere. If I have to go to one store and flip on, one level of payment and then go somewhere else and they only accept a different one, I think that's going to cause a lot of friction, and consumers don't like friction. If there's too much friction in any transaction anywhere, forget it, it's not done. I'm going to find the most frictionless way to do it. So I think that the way for any of these wallets to win is to be able to be leveraged at all those places that consumers touch on a daily basis. The other thing is we saw even with Starbucks when they introduced that app is it's repetition. So if I'm using it consistently and gaining points and gaining rewards for using it and being rewarded to do that, I'm going to be more apt to continue to do that. It becomes part of that habit forming. It's very easy for us to form that habit of use from a consumer perspective if we actually do it repetitively. So if there's not a lot of places to do it, and I can't do it at every place that I'm going to, I'm not going to be able to have that sticky habit form. And I think we need those special functions in order for that habit to form, for merchants to see the benefit of any of these wallets and for consumers to see the benefit of it.
Drew, or Andy, do you have a view?
Yeah, I think so. The Panera example I was referring to earlier, it's much more than payment. So what Panera is not confirmed, but I can see it coming in what something just announced about their integration with HealthKit in iOS 2. So Panera has a great loyalty program. If you used it before, they also are very transparent about calorie counts. It's obviously a growing trend about people counting calories. They're one of the Apple Pay partners. They have a great app. They're going to be integrated with HealthKit. So imagine you walk into Panera, scan your watch, you pay. They know what you ordered. They know what you ate. They know how many calories it is. All of that's automatically entered into your daily goal for calories. It's those kind of things that payments are not the value there, but they're what enables all of that to happen because they are the point of contact between merchants and their customers. So payments are the mechanism, but they're not the reason that someone's using it. It's not because it's more convenient. It's just because it adds all of this value and can automate a lot of that stuff that people are starting to do these days anyway. That's where I was saying businesses haven't been super imaginative about how to actually utilize those kind of functionality and integrate those systems yet.
Please, Andy.
Yeah. So I think there are two strategies. There's, like Chico's obviously has invested heavily in creating a very proprietary solution that has a lot of seamless experience and provides the appearance of a lot of value. I'm not in their target demographic, so I can't really speak to it firsthand. But, I think there are divergent strategies, right? So I want, as a brand, which I'm not, but if I were, I would want my own proprietary experience for which I have 100% control over. But I also know that I'm not going to get mass adoption. Not every customer I want or that shops at my store is going to love me enough to download my proprietary app. That consumer might have an app that holds 75 different retailers in it, like a Passbook, like a number of others that I could speak about, including our own. But at the end of the day, I think if Uber, for those that have used it, if you could Uber my life, that would be incredible. If I could literally just walk into your store, pick up the products I want, and walk out, and everything's just self-settles, that would be incredible. And I don't think we're far off from that kind of a reality. In fact, it actually reminds me of there was an AT&T commercial a decade ago, or maybe even longer than that. And if hopefully you'll remember it, otherwise I'll look like an idiot. But there was this big sort of scraggly biker-looking guy with this big long overcoat that walked into this really obviously suburban-looking grocery store that's brightly lit, and you can hear the music playing in the background, and he's just walking down the aisles, and he's just grabbing products and stuffing them in his coat, and obviously intimidating the other customers. And he just fills up his coat and ultimately just walks out the store. And sort of at the tail end of the commercial, after he walks through the store, you see bing, 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 and all these little price tags pop up on the screen. And obviously back then they were pushing RFID. But I think that concept is still really, really valid, and it was so visionary back then. I still think to some degree we're still chasing that as a possibility. And I think we've got the tools and the technology and the wantingness to make those kinds of experiences not only viable, but valid in the market. I think that's essentially what we're all kind of chasing in an aggregated experience, whether it's Apple Pay that gets us there, whether it's Google or something that's yet to be discovered. But I think that's kind of the reality that we're looking for. I don't think the experience has to have discounts and coupons and other things associated with it. If you can just make my life as easy as Uber is, I'm done. I'm there.
You just reminded me of Animal House and Flounder stuffing up his coat with all the stuff. And I'm just walking out, but she says, "What is in your coat?" At least he gets a date out of the whole thing. So I think it was Flounder, but it wasn't actually. It was the other guy, the thin guy. So, oh well. Actually, and what's something you guys are saying, there's been a debate, I think, over the last 2 days of, is it one device and one app, or are there multiple and separate ones? And I was thinking as you were talking about, hey, I guess what Clutch does, but private label. I do have a separate card for Saks Fifth Avenue versus Macy's across the street versus whoever else I'm shopping at. I just told you something about myself that could be used as big data. And is it in the end one app, or am I going to have 70 different apps, or some subset thereof? You guys have any opinion on it, or?
You'll have 70 different apps.
Okay.
But that's why I think a big sleeper feature that nobody really talks about at Apple Pay is the checkout with Apple Pay. So Google has checkout, but they haven't done a very good job integrating that with Wallet. They're doing it now, but it's a little bit late. What Apple's doing with Apple Pay when it comes to the checkout is more like what checkout with PayPal does. And they're going to be obviously very directly integrated with the OS, unlike PayPal would be able to do on iOS since Apple controls the platform. I think that's why you will continue to have 70 different apps, is because you might have 70 different apps and 70 different experiences for every retailer, but the checkout mechanism, the pay mechanism is actually the same. So I don't see any reason that retailers or any demand for retailers to actually want to come together to do that. I don't think that makes sense for them either, given the market differences.
Go ahead.
I think for the same reason that we have multiple cards in our wallet now, we'll probably have multiple apps for merchants and potentially even multiple wallets. I know I use my United Visa when I want to book and get points for flights, but I use some of my other cards to get different rewards. And I think consumers are just going to consistently do that. They're going to want to leverage what makes more sense for them from a value add perspective and from a benefits perspective. And each one of these different wallets are going to offer, and merchant apps are going to offer them certain things, whether they're integrated definitely with their retail, which, Apple, with their loyalty program, which Apple has not come to the table or foray to do, and some of the other wallets have. Or if it's because I support a private label, which, I want to use that because I get 5% every time I go to Target when I use my Red card, which is a private label card and not on that acquirer network and through the processors that, Apple would use. So I think that you're going to see consumers consistently do what they do today, and that's leverage the wallets and the apps that give them the most benefit and value.
Drew?
I think, the name Clutch, there are a lot of different ways you can extrapolate a meaning behind the name. Clutch is just what you need when you need it, if you want to use the sports analogy. It also speaks to the readiness, the availability in an instant for whatever it is that you're looking for, whether it's a card or other. But it's also a small woman's purse. So when we were developing our approach to a mobile wallet, we were really not thinking about the payment methodology, which is a card. We weren't really thinking about the wallet, which is something that holds multiple payment methods. We were really thinking about a purse that holds payment types, different types of cards, coupons, offers, and other value-added components that I think add to a richer experience. From our perspective, I think there is validity and justification for me having 2, 3, 4, 5 proprietary apps where I have fierce loyalty or regularity. So maybe I have Starbucks and Sunoco and Superfresh and the dry cleaner and so on and so on, right? But I don't envision myself or a lot of people managing 75 applications on your phone. I mean, how many screens do you really want to dig through? So I do believe that there is justification for an app that holds multiple cards or multiple relationships, gives you that digital touch point that you want with the retailer, and the retailer having that digital touch point with you, the consumer. I'm not sure exactly what it's going to look like. We took a stab at it. I don't think we nailed it. But I think, in my perspective, you're going to have the option of individual apps or an app that manages many relationships in one.
Let me see, is there, besides Apple, we've discussed that a lot, is there a company that stands out to you folks as someone who's really got it or on the cusp of getting it? It could be Target,
Starbucks is the only one that comes to mind, and that one's also everybody knows what that is.
I mentioned Uber. I like
Yeah.
Uber.
They have a good payment experience for sure.
I tend to be a fan of Uber. It's funny because I made a bet against them about a year ago. And we bet Uber versus OpenTable, which will last longer. And OpenTable, of course, was acquired by Priceline.
Yeah.
So it's a good question. We have to now go into the interpretation phase of who wins that bet. So, by the way, we bet ice creams, so it's nothing big. So I might be in venture capital, but we don't bet lots of money. So, except on our investments. Any questions out there before I go into any more of mine? Anyone have a question that you'd like to ask? We have our esteemed panel, and they're ready to answer anything you might want. Okay. And if anyone else has anything, just speak up and yell out and interrupt me, please. So it's better that way. Let me go through, and this came up a moment ago with the friction, I think in Andy's introduction especially. What reduces the friction in the space? Is it consumer adoption, and everybody kind of says, I want a Blu-ray, so now Blockbuster, there's no more, but Redbox has to carry Blu-rays? Or is there something else that can help get rid of the friction to accelerate, again, that timeline? Or are we just stuck dealing with it?
I know at Okta, a big part of our process is research, and that's really the best way that we've found. It's research with users, research with the business, research into the technology, and all of that coming together to find out what the path of least resistance is. And so when you go and do it, there's a lot less guesswork than if you didn't do all of that research. So it's all through the design, and the design and technology come from that research. I can't imagine really doing it without it.
Is it Christina? Do you have?
So with that research, obviously making sure the functionality is there, given all of the use cases. So note that So SoftCard has completely and utterly ignored the fact that merchants run multiple channels. They're focused only on the store, which causes friction. I cannot do buy online, pick up in store because I'm not supporting this payment online. So making sure that, all the research you do really understands how consumers are interacting with each of those touch points, how they're interacting with the merchants on the, online, in m-commerce, in their, native apps, in their stores, and making sure that the use cases and the flows that you create and work with from your payments and your technology play work well within all of those touch points, so that is a seamless transition across their channels from a payment to a loyalty to coupon application in that app. That's going to help reduce the friction. If I'm stopping at any point in time and I have to switch out, pop out of apps or change things, I've now introduced friction into this channel, and I've introduced frustration from a consumer perspective.
Yeah, and I would actually play off of that as well. This is something I mentioned earlier. I think, mobile is still something that's kind of nascent in the retail space. Some retailers have really made a concerted effort to embrace the channel and incorporate that into a more broader strategy. I think Chico's did a good job of kind of unpacking their approach to it. But I really believe that, enabling consumers to, much like you said, operate across all those different channels in a seamless way is so critical. But, and this is something I said earlier, that the people and the process and the technology that a lot of retailers currently have at their disposal just don't support that frictionless deployment. So until they figure out how to manage the back end, they can't really produce the front end experience that's required to reduce or eliminate that friction.
Just to flip a little bit, the other part that comes with the mobile payment and everything else is data. And one of the things that caught me in the Apple Pay is who controls the data, and it's just who you think in the end, between the different big categories, Apple being a big category into itself controls the data, and then the corollary question, of course, is what do you think they're going to do with it? And Drew, you want to start us out?
Sure. Yeah, it seems, I don't have full details. I haven't looked a lot into it, but from what I have seen, it doesn't look like Apple actually holds very much data about what it is. They don't have line items. I think they even throw away the amount after some time, but who still does have it is the merchant. And that's really who probably should have it, and that's who has it now. But that's a lot different than the way Google's doing it or PayPal is doing it. And that's interesting. I don't quite know what the implication there is, but Apple's focus on privacy is going a long way towards it's clear in their approach to payments as well. I'm not sure what that's going to mean, but I'm looking forward to seeing it.
So some of the disruption with mobile payments that we're seeing and some of the hesitation on the merchant's behalf is owning that data and well as that brand. If the consumer is recognizing Apple as their brand because they're doing it with every one of their checkout, now that merchant has kind of lost that brand name and recognition. So some of that concern is how do I keep my brand? How do I keep my loyalty? Am I still in the customer's, face at all points of that transaction, and keep that information so that I can do a better job marketing offers, marketing promotions, giving the value add to each one of these consumers. Depending upon what wallet, to your point, Google, they own the data and they're in your face as Google Wallet, pay with Google, I'm Google, every one of those transactions. So I'm in the store and I could be at any one of my merchants, but I'm paying with Google. Google is the brand in this store, which is, frustrating for the merchants. PayPal's the same way, and they're going to use that data. So merchants have, they have to, weigh this. And MCX comes to the table. Every one of the merchants that they're courting, and they're saying, we let you own the data. We let you own the brand. We let you own that customer experience so that you can create a frictionless feel. So by no means is the battle won at all. And I think that that's, some of the hesitation in a lot of this mass adoption is what is the right for the consumer and what's right for the merchant.
Yeah, data is always a dicey topic. Yeah, it's a dicey topic. I could talk for an hour. Maybe I won't say anything.
We've got about 8 minutes, so
Yeah.
you could do.
Yeah.
And actually, Christina, what you just said, is it kind of like the same problem with Amazon? If I join the Amazon marketplace, if I buy a bike tire or a bicycle, I feel like I bought it through Amazon.
Yes.
Or even a song.
Yep.
And it's the same idea it's who owns the data, and Amazon, I assume, owns the data, so that if I buy a bike, they know to sell me a tire.
Yep.
And the same thing through the payment and through who owns the data. And I've had a mixed view on Apple. It's hard to tell. And I would ask the same question with tokenization. If I tokenize, does the merchant even know, unless I use a loyalty program and or a private label card, does the merchant have a clue that I was in their store? And I will ask about security in a moment.
So tokenization does really skew that. So they probably won't know unless you used a loyalty program who you are and what you're doing. So, I mean, to your point, if I'm not keeping that data or sharing that data and there's no relationship between that payment provider or that wallet and the merchant, you may go to this concept of what you're doing now for marketing for all your cash transactions. I have no way of knowing who they are. It's just this margin and these sell well in October outside of, I don't know that this person also bought this in conjunction with that last week, so this is the coupon I should offer them. So you really lose that opportunity to add value.
Okay. And then, actually, I guess since I brought it up, I should ask, earlier, I think this morning, someone mentioned security in I think it was Jack Philbin, and showed a bunch of surveys, and he mentioned security as being a factor in keeping us from adopting. Do you see that as a factor, or do most of us just say, hey, my MasterCard covers it, so I don't care?
It's my assessment that if you ask people if they care about security, they'll say yes. But if you just put something in front of them, they'll do it. So how concerned are they as consumers? So, security is obviously critical. We all know that, whether you're on the payment side or the merchant side, it's a war out there. Everyone wants to get access to your systems. They want to rob you. They want to steal your information and use it for nefarious reasons. And it's of high importance for everybody in this room. I can guarantee it. Consumers, the bulk of them, don't even think about it. I've been affected in every breach, I think, in the past 6 months. Every time my card gets pulled out, right? Am I concerned? Honestly, no. Because I know that the systems are there to support me. If my monies are taken, I know I'll be reimbursed for the most part. So I continue to go spend and spend and spend using the same card that got breached twice or 3 times in the past 6 months. And I'm somebody in the industry. So am I concerned about security? Yes. But is it enough to stop me from behaving? No.
You actually just gave us a bunch of data. You're either shopping at Neiman Marcus or at Target or Home Depot. Whoever it is who's going to use that data, here you go. Go ahead.
I think, just adding to what Andy said, to the point, consumers, they are concerned about security when they hear about these breaches. Oh, it was horrible, it was great. But to the point, I'm sure the people who were breached at Target still shop at Target with their credit cards. So they're still doing that shopping. If they knew the level outside of the credit card of how much information about themselves, which is not displayed, they don't, how much of that, did they just get your PAN and to make credit, or did they get your address, your phone number, some of the other stuff that's, included on that credit card, maybe they'd be more concerned. I think the concern more is for the merchant. The merchant is the one that has to go through all these PCI audits every year, which is costly. The merchant is the one who Visa and MasterCard are giving, I'm going to up your interchange because I just had to pay for this breach. And oh, by the way, I'm also charging you a fee because you got breached. So in the end, the merchant is the one concerned about the security. And they're one of the pieces of the puzzle that has to push this forward for, mobility to be mass adopted. So while the consumer may appear to be concerned and really not, because they're still charging, it's the merchant that's very concerned because they're the one that's footing the bill for all of it.
That's a great point.
Yep. One thing I would add to that is that I think consumers are not concerned now, and they're going to be even less concerned. There's going to be more breaches. That's another time that no consumer is going to feel the pain of that, and I think it's only going to decrease from here.
Liz, are there any other questions out there while we're at it? We've covered a few more topics. So, okay, great. So then as we go through, and let me ask you, in the opposite of what I asked for, I asked you what will get people to adopt. What do you think is keeping the people from adopting at this moment? It's obviously not security to a great degree. Is it just convenience, or is it just we're not used to the idea, or?
I think there isn't a valuable experience out there right now.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, there's no value add right now. There's not a lot of merchants that have it for it to be used. Again, the swipe of a credit card is very convenient. It's a second of my life. Now, when EMV comes along and you have to keep that credit card in there the entire point of the transaction, it may not be as convenient, and mobility may seem a touch, a tap, a scan of a QR code, which is the second, could be that tipping point. Since EMV is not mass rolled out here, that's still a potential, but that swipe is still ultra convenient in a checkout line. And a lot of merchants store your credit card. Amazon, it's so convenient for me to shop Amazon. Yep, pay, done, because they have my credit card information. So the value add from a wallet perspective, and the fact that these wallets aren't mass, there's just no value add for the consumer. And merchants they're sitting here weighing, Apple just came out with something. They were probably on the fence waiting for what Apple was going to do, and MCX is out there, and I already signed with MCX, and I want to reduce interchange, or I have a PayPal. They're on the fence. Who do I go with? And to the point, they may have to go with a lot of different retailers, and some of those wallets are saying, nope, you can only choose one, and if you bet on the wrong one, you're SOL. So there's just a lot that's stopping. There's so many roadblocks right now that people are putting up themselves. These wallets are putting them up by causing the exclusivity rules, and EMV could help from a consumer perspective, but right now, man, that swipe is very convenient for me, and I don't see any other value from these wallets.
I think there was kind of a stagnation in, that's a word?
Yes.
I'll go with it.
It's a noun, I think.
Okay. So I think that, obviously Google went all in on NFC. Way too early, bad choice. But they went for it, and great. And a lot of other wallet types have deployed the NFC approach as part of their solution. A lot of retailers, Google funded some of them, upgraded their point of sale systems, which we all know is a massive CapEx with very little, if any, ROI associated with it. To incorporate NFC as a payment methodology. I think that there was so much speculation and concern as to what is Apple going to do. Are they going to incorporate NFC, or are they going to go BLE? If they went BLE, it's like, oh my God, how is this going to work? There are too many options. There's no way to standardize it. That's more equipment I need at my point of sale if I'm a retailer. So the fact that they went NFC in this most recent release, I think, is a good thing for the industry on whole, because now we can all rally around a payment methodology that, there was a lot of speculation was on its last legs a little while ago. So now it looks like there's broad-based commitment to NFC as a payment method. So I think that will help streamline the process. But in the absence of Apple committing to NFC, I think there was a huge barrier.
Okay. And then one last thing, because I've been told we're running out. Just quickly, if next year when we're sitting here and you can update your answer, what year do you think we're all going to sit there and say, finally, mobile has arrived? Is it 16, 17, 15, 28, after we passed away? And I'll hold you the prediction next year.
I see 2016 as being a very prominent year. EMV being October of 2015, consumers are going to start seeing stuff. You're going to start seeing those kids who were born in that mobile age of 10, 12, 13, only having a phone, starting to go shopping on their own and, looking for ways to continue to use their phone because that's all they ever take with them. I know I have one of those kids, and she'll be shopping in 2016, and I'll be loading her wallet up with that. So I think that'll be a big year. There's going to be a lot of change. Merchants would have had to have bought the NFC with the EMV for 2015 October. So you're going to see 2016 just I think that'll be the year when things start happening.
Yep, I would say the beginning of 2017, and mostly because of the hardware that's out there, there'll probably be no Android phone that doesn't have NFC, and there'll be no iPhone that's without NFC that'll be being sold at that time. All phones will have some sort of NFC chip, which is the major predominant payment method, obviously. Just one thing I saw right on the way here is listening that Forrester this time last year said that NFC as a payment method was dead in the United States, and they didn't caveat that Apple hadn't made a move yet. So clearly nobody knows what they're talking about here.
So I think you're going to see a consistent increase in trend lines for the adoption of mobile payment. But if we're talking ubiquity, we really need to think of what that word means. It's not just big box retailers, the ones that are in the mall behind us here, right? For it to be ubiquitous, it has to work at my dry cleaner. It has to work at the local coffee shop, not the Starbucks. So I think we're way past 2020 when we're looking at true ubiquitous mobile-enabled payment across the United States. That said, I do agree with the rest of the panel here that it's that 17-ish time frame when you're going to have the big box, the massive retailers with all of the budget and all of the technology and everything else that's groundswelling behind all of that that will enable us to make mobile transactions at scale.
Cool. With that, I'm going to thank our panel. I'm going to thank our audience. And, of course, I'm going to thank everybody else. Thanks for having us. And good luck.